Okay, recording another video, and just coming back from class, lecture, discussion. Had a talk by a biodiversity specialist of South Africa, and just talking about the general concepts, why preservation, conservation of biodiversity is important, and yeah, just shit like that. Then talking about why biodiversity is maybe important from an economic perspective due to supposed increases in productivity when you're cultivating in an area that is biodiverse. It's a good point, but when you have the monocrops being cultivated in these large fields, usually with fertilizer, I don't know how entirely relevant that is. You're not going to have farmers in the United States restore an area of farmland to its original biodiversity and then cultivate crops on top of that. That doesn't seem very productive. And this goes into the whole, I guess, discussion about the expanding use of resources and the efficiency of cultivation, and that's all going to be necessary for it all goes back to population. If these breeders keep going with business as usual, then we will hit the crunch, and there's obviously no doubt about that. You can't use technology as a fucking savior. It does come down to this idea of carrying capacity and the sustainability of human populations as well. We talk about the sustainability of other species and why it's important all of this to have a rich assortment of species in nature. Hey, hang on, is this on? Yeah, and in nature, why it's so important to have all of these species, but they're neglecting the essential variable, which is the amount of human population, and that's going to determine the extent of the impact on nature. And that's what's being excluded, is that people act like if there's no fucking choice in the matter, and that it's just a given that human population will continue to increase, and the question is how to adapt to it. That is such a defeatist fucking attitude towards this shit, and it pisses me the fuck off, because that's the central tenet of all of these questions of conservation, preservation, sustainability, efficiency. All of these things do come down to the human impact, and of course it's going to increase when you have human fucking beings every fucking square mile of this fucking earth. What do you think's going to happen? You're going to need fucking more resources. You're going to need to cultivate way more resources, so you're going to have monocropping. You're going to have this fucking these expansion of less environmentally friendly practices of cultivating agriculture in order to sustain these large populations. And so what's going to happen there? It's going to fucking fall apart. That's going to have critical implications for biodiversity. Not only the lack of diversity in monocropping, but also the expansion of the farmland and encroachment into natural resources and key places in the ecosystem that serve some sort of ecosystem function. And when you factor those things into the equation, as was done with this new economic forum, and you do account for externalities, that is what you get. And they did show this, what I thought was pretty interesting, mangrove cultivation versus using it for shrimp farming. And when you add in the external cost of things, you find out that keeping the mangrove areas where they are and not turning them into shrimp farms is actually way more economically valuable. It's just that people don't see those costs. So kicking people in the ass to realize that there's got to be some sort of fundamental economic change away from self-interest. And when you have this mindset, which is caustic, about everybody's out for him or herself, and that mindset does tend to promote itself when you have people who are living in poverty. They don't see the big picture. They just say, how am I going to survive one extra day? And they're going to do so at the environment's expense. Clearly, they put themselves above everything else in survival. You can see that with the bushmeat trade. A lot of these people would otherwise starve, but they don't consider that there fucking won't be any chimpanzees left if you keep eating them at such a fucking high rate. It's those considerations that are really central to the equation, and that's 100% connected to population. And how people are missing this point is beyond me. Maybe it's just approaching it from a scientific discipline and studying the natural sciences, I suppose, to the exclusion of the human element is what's lacking here. And it seems like need that interdisciplinary focus and bringing humans into the equation, and the idea of human carrying capacity and stress on the environment. That all needs to be included. And we're not talking about just stresses from the people who barely even consume the level of resources that people in the West do. This Western lifestyle is fucking perverse. It is too fucking sloppy. So I'm not out to blame those ignorant masses who maybe haven't even considered the impact of population and breeding on the civilization. I'm talking about these so-called educated and enlightened fools in the West who are doing this breeding and consuming and reproducing in the face of these fucking crises. And that's obviously irresponsible and dangerous and it's fucking stupid. It just contributes to the planet fucking careening off a cliff, which does bring me to my next point. I guess I am interested in biodiversity, but I suppose it's this whole dilemma again of cleaning up messes versus actually taking an anti-natalist approach and just saying fuck it all, just wipe the fucking human race out. It seems kind of useless in trying to... Okay, add-on video, because the camera did run out of space or battery while I was recording, and I did make some really fucking good points, in my opinion, about this dilemma between between my desire, I guess, collective desire to protect biodiversity, and which I equated to cleaning up messes, other people's messes, and ensuring minimal suffering for people and animals as a result of loss of biodiversity. And the impacts, of course, are very significant and have been discussed already, but also contrasting that desire to clean up messes to the anti-natalist sort of position, which one could argue that it's just fucking pointless to engage in preservation, just in the sense that there's fucking no point in continued living, so why even bother pursuing this goal, however worthy it may be, to try and reduce the amount of suffering through, I don't know, preservation or whatever it was. And I was kind of saying, well, if people are going to people are going to listen to my argument, I'm going to try being an advocate of anti-natalism, but if people aren't going to listen to me, then honestly, people are going to get what they deserve in terms of these crunches that are going to occur as a result of our unsustainable practices, especially in the West. and in the face of population growth. So let's say population continues to expand and we continue business as usual. Well, there are a number of disasters. Any number of disasters could prove very harmful to the future of humanity as we know it, including resource crisis, climate change, and the failure of global capitalism, which is only a matter of time. So we've got all of these crises, and we are staring down the barrel of this fucking loaded gun that has all of these different bullets. And if one of those bullets doesn't kill us, then certainly others will. So it is a matter of trying to promote this ideology and the correct belief that there is nothing to do here except clean up messes. And it's high time that people stopped procreating. And if that people prove unreceptive to that message, then they are going to get what they deserve. That's pretty much where I was at. So I guess while this biodiversity shit is important, you gotta look at the bigger picture as well, in terms of our graceful exit, which is the only thing we can do, essentially. That's the best thing for humanity, is this going out in a way that is graceful as possible. So that was a poor attempt at trying to rehash my argument, or what I was trying to say from the walk and talk, but I think you got the picture. So till next time and such.